This Spider-Man topic is potentially a good conversational fodder, not because you can go very far talking about comic books, but because there's something, I think, deeper underneath. Something perhaps universally human, because this is Spider-Man meeting his darkness, meeting his fractured brokenness, meeting all the muck and mess of what it is to be human. And if you're anything like me, that's your experience in life as well. Clothes make the man is certainly an appropriate statement for Spider-Man, if for none of us. And embodied in this film in some pretty simple, easy to understand symbology. Good Spider-Man looks like he always does. Bad is black. But that sort of simple symbol represents something internal and much bigger and universal. The core idea being this whole struggle over pride and what pride does as we engage it. Looks like things are much more exciting back there. How's it going, guys? Doing good? Yeah? Anybody seen Spider-Man? Nobody? Any Spider-Man haters over there?
It's supposed to be worse.
Oh, Spider-Man haters? Is it? Okay, we got our first review of the afternoon. This idea of pride, I think, has been simplified in sort of the modern era, because pride is now a buzzword for confidence, respect for a community of people, and it's lost its sort of ancient punch. It's lost its volatility as a human struggle. But pride, in that sort of ancient sense of the way the word's been used, is something big and gangly. It reaches through all of who we are. It's the kind of pride that doesn't just mean you have a confidence and an understanding of who you are, but the kind of thing that vies for defining you at your very core. The kind of thing that reaches into you and, in a sense, possesses you. Pride tells you who you are, what you are, and more importantly, what you are in relation to other people. That in some sense, other people are simplified and dragged down to being nothing more than something to serve your ego, to serve your identity. And in the ancient sense, the old way of using that word, that's a very dark thing. And the bad news is, I think it's a potentially universal thing. That if we reach deep enough inside, we all see that. And that's certainly Spider-Man's struggle, Peter Parker's struggle here. We meet all of a sudden, instead of the nerdy, kind of geeky Peter Parker, we meet this confident media star. We meet this cocky guy, and you start to see relationships disintegrate. You start to see people that are loved, adored, necessary in his life, getting hurt. And maybe you've seen that in your life. I've certainly seen it in mine. And I think that the only way to even get a handle on that kind of pride is to recognize it, is to see it. That's hard, because it hides. Everybody's seen sort of those super confident people that you want to label with the word pride. That kind of cocky jerks who push their way through a room. And I gotta watch where I look when I say that. Those cocky jerks who push their way through a room and seem overly confident and kind of belittle everybody in their path. But I think the universal pride that most of us are familiar with is the kind that absolutely has a hold on me. It's the kind that makes me want to say, when I stand up and talk to a tiny little room with very few people like this, sort of say, oh boy, this is a quiet afternoon, but boy, you should have seen it last week when it was, it wasn't filled up last week. It's the kind of thing that often leads to self-effacement. It's the kind of thing that's actually underneath a lot of people's bad self-esteem. Can you look in yourself in the mirror and hate yourself and be filled with pride at the same time? Well, in the deeper sense of the word pride, yes. If that looking into the mirror and hating yourself is a twisted sort of self-focus, placing yourself at the very center of the universe, cutting off other people. Putting yourself, even your hatred of yourself, at the pinnacle of your existence, and everything else serves that. And that, as strange as it is just as destructive and just as prideful as the cocky guy pushing his way through the room. What's the other side of that? What's the hope? What's the tension that we're pulled into in that? Well, in the clothes make the man analogy, it's got to be getting naked, emotionally, please, before other people. Vulnerability, humility. Now, humility, again, is probably one of those misunderstood words. It hasn't gone through the media twist that the word pride has. But humility is often not used in or grabbed hold of in the kind of way that really begs its deepest aspects. We think of humility and we think of that sort of self-effacement. That, oh, no, it's nothing. No, I didn't really do that great a job. But I think that kind of humility is really just good PR for pride. It's just kind of a paint job on the outside of pride to say, no, I'm humble. There's nothing dark inside. The deeper aspect of humility has to come from a revelation. I think it has to come from the revelation that this character undergoes inside of this movie. It comes from looking at the relationships in your life, the circumstances of your life, and seeing yourself destroying other people. Destroying yourself. Seeing your potential to hurt people, even unthinkingly, even without intent. That's revelatory. And it changes your view of what human nature really might be. And it places you into a whole bunch of tension. Spider-Man's a hero because he defends the weak, he struggles with his own pride, and overcomes it. And, in some sense, because he works in the shadows. In the classic Spider-Man sense, he puts on the mask and nobody knows who he does, what he's doing. Nobody knows who he is. He's this faceless hero. And that's common from superhero to superhero to superhero. Batman, Superman, the big three, and dozens of others have this public persona that's almost anonymous, like all of us. And this private persona that is bigger than that is heroic. And that comes from somewhere. It doesn't come from the first guy to pen a comic book. It wasn't a new invention. That faceless hero, humble hero, comes from ancient roots. It comes, strangely enough, from this idea of Jesus Christ, historically. This guy who did tremendous deeds of heroism in defending the weak, in taking on corrupt authorities, in etching his name into history in a way that nobody else has. And time again, throughout all those episodes, crowds and crowds, cities full of people rallied around him and tried to make him king, tried to push him into political power, tried to give him the means to ascend to the pinnacle of society. And time again in the historic narratives of Christ, you see him slipping out through the crowd, walking out of that situation, sometimes even directly confronting it. That's the same dynamic. It's where it comes from. And in the midst of those encounters, numerous times he said something, repeated it, that I think gets right to the core of this struggle between humility and pride in all of us. What he said in various ways, in various paraphrases, in various recontextualizations is, if you lose your life for me, if you let go of your life, you'll gain it. But if you try to grab hold of your life, if you try to gain your life, if you try to possess and hold it, you'll lose it. It's a paradox. Try to gain your life and you'll lose it. Lose your life and you'll gain it. But it gets right to the very heart of where pride grabs us and what can free us from. And I think that that's something worth talking about. So to that end, here's some thoughts. You can go far deeper and into much more interesting places than I possibly can. Invite you to toss this around with somebody near you if you feel like it. If you don't, you can also take this online right here.